Everyone, welcome back. Uh, we'll start our new next session. This will be presented by Mr. Dhiman Basu, Senior Director and Global Practice Head, Cloud and SOA Adoption Business, Happiest Mind Technologies. A brief bio about Mr. Dhiman Basu. He is having 10 years of experience. He holds the position of being the most reliable and trusted partner in cloud adoption globally. He is responsible for practice, positioning and branding, demand supply management, delivery and P&L. Prior to joining Happiest Mind Technologies, he has worked with leading companies including Wipro Technologies and PricewaterhouseCoopers. I now invite Mr. Dhiman Basu to have this presentation.
I hope I am audible. Okay. First of all, thanks. It has been a nice platform to talk about cloud, to talk about transformation. And special thanks to UBM and Shrikant for arranging this. I'm going to start off today's session by making a statement. Cloud is no longer an option. It's probably more mainstream. And it's something inevitable. I don't think any CIO or a CXO can do his business planning or an IT planning without evaluating cloud. How many of you don't agree with this? No hands, good. Okay, the situation outside the room is probably not that rosy. When I talk to the CXOs or the business sponsors or even the enterprise architects, there are certain perceptions that they have, and those perceptions go a long way in impeding the adoption of cloud, right? And those perceptions come from probably the stake that they have in blessing cloud adoption for their particular enterprise, and which stem down and come as myths. It seems like the words myths, clouds, all synonymous, right? In the morning, we heard Anna from CA talking about how we can accelerate adoption of cloud from an infrastructure and services point of view. We heard Sridhar from Control S. He also tried to demystify cloud. So in the next 30 minutes, we will also see that how much we can clear the air, and we all leave the room with a new perception, and hopefully that helps in adoption of cloud. Before I go on to the myths per se, and again we are going to talk about 10 such myths, and I'm sure there are hundreds of more myths floating around, but that's good. I think that helps us to get out to the bottom of things and get the real data points out, right, so that people are clear when they make their decision. Let's look at some of the trends. I think the key message that is coming out is there has been a huge bullish trend observed in terms of investments that they are going for applications. I know that we have spoken about hardware, we have spoken about virtualization whenever we have spoken about cloud. But how much have we really looked into the application space? Being a transformation initiative, that's where probably the maximum impact you can make. And if you see some of the trends, like 20% of the business will have no IT assets. That's SaaS adoption. Clearly, a trend that you need to watch out for the next 2 to 3 years. All right. Significant spend in terms of application development and maintenance. How can cloud help you to be more efficient and do a cost takeout and put that cost in your growth initiatives? Ultimately, cloud is about efficiency. I'm sure you have seen this slide. This is one of the reports that have come from IBM Tech Labs. I think the key thing that you need to observe in this report is the top 3 drivers, right? Flexibility and scalability. When we talk about flexibility, it's not only about hardware. It's about flexibility to adapt to change. I have seen CIOs and CEOs ready to spend billions of dollars if business change management is easier, no matter what the capital cost is. They're more worried about change rather than procurement. How do you scale your business? And when I talk about business, it's not about only applications, not about infrastructure. It's the entire ecosystem that I want to speak about. Cloud helps in doing that. Cost. Well, we have been fortunate that cloud provides a platform where you can offer your customers a consumer-driven pricing. Right? And as Sridhar pointed out in the morning, OpEx-based model is not something new. You have server firms, you had services which were being given out in terms of consumption. There's nothing new. But then what's new about cloud? Cloud gives you a platform which comes with an integrated capability of disruptive technologies like mobile, like social, like integration. And it, by the way, it also gives a huge cost advantage. That's the uniqueness about cloud. And obviously efficiency, right? When we talk about efficiency in cloud, it's more about standardization. It's more about talking of one architecture, one stack, one set of standards that you follow, be it your infrastructure, be it your applications, be it your processes, operations, and whatnot, right? Cloud is evolving, and we know that. It has matured a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. And believe me or not, topics like cloud interoperability is already making a sweep in the market. Yes, standards are lacking in cloud. And once we have the standards, probably efficiency is going to be the top driver. So let's look at the various stakeholders, and again this is just a representative of the key stakeholders that really bless the adoption of cloud in an enterprise. We have the CIO audience, we have the business leads and the CEO audience, and we have a set of product engineering leads, right, who develop platforms and products. I mean, that's just a representation of the ecosystem that we have out there. If you really see their interests or what they want from cloud, quite distinct in nature, right? And it's important to note these perspectives because this is where the myths start stemming from. They're not happy with one thing and they say it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, right? So if you talk about a CEO, he is probably more interested in any initiative that increases his top line or bottom line. That's what he will be only interested in, right? Because that's what makes him win. It's important to understand that what makes each of these stakeholders win when they adopt cloud. Talk about a CIO or a CFO, he talks about standardization, talks about componentization, talks about shared services model, talks about a business case or an ROI. That's what makes him win. Talk about the product heads, right? People who define, evangelize, and conceptualize products. You see, they're more bothered in terms of retaining their position in the market, be it an IBM or an Oracle, or an SAP for that matter. It's important for them to keep the revenue stream going, keep a tab in terms of the adoption in the entire industry. And they are today looking at SaaSification, the most difficult thing to happen in cloud. And it's one of the myths I've covered in the subsequent slides. We'll talk about it in details. And then you have the business owners, right, who are more interested in spawning new business lines, probably within a day. That's what they would be looking for. Spawning new markets or new geos within a week. We could not even think about it a couple of years or 3 years back. That I am a US company who runs insurance business and I want to start business in Maldives. Can I get operational within a week? That's what cloud helps you to do, right? And that's what makes the lob owners win. So it's important to note again and again what makes these key stakeholders win by leveraging cloud. That's a key statement. So coming to the myths, so as I said earlier, we have selected the top 10 myths based on the discussion or based on our experience with various enterprise stakeholders, and I'm sure there are more. But before we delve deeper, just to a little bit understand that what are these myths, right? It's a very common word. See, myths are psychological situations that come from a belief system, right? And people typically would have these belief systems coming out of certain transactions. And probably he can't recall that transaction when he says it doesn't work for me because of this reason. What it lacks are the data points or the facts. Now, what we are trying to do here is probably table and surface those data points and then ask these same stakeholders, hey, are you feeling a little different? Do you have a different perspective than you were having earlier? And that's how you demystify cloud. I don't think there's a better way to do it. So it's about belief systems or facts. That's what myths is all about. So we go into the myths. I think this is something which is known to you all. But the key thing that we need to note here, cloud is actually driving the industry a little backwards. And I'll tell you how it is doing so. We know that verticalized IT or industry-based IT approach is the way to go. Cloud is actually taking it to the other direction. It talks more about componentization. It talks more about standardization. Be it applications, be it infrastructure, be it operations, be it your assets. And then you need to probably aggregate, integrate, or customize and then provide cloud services. This shift of paradigm is a very important thing to note about cloud. Cloud is about brokerage. Cloud is not about very specific point solutions. It also helps in that, no doubt about it. But if you really see the building blocks of cloud, they are like the Lego blocks, right? Which gives you everything but doesn't probably give you the end-to-end solution. That's how cloud is designed to be. And if you see each of these components, security, infrastructure, data, applications, whether it's a package software or it's a bespoke software, you have matured products which help you position cloud in a very strong way. You don't have any dark ten technologies. Talk about verticalized solutions, and we will even delve deeper into that we see that how vertical solutions are also becoming an important factor in terms of adopting cloud. It's unavoidable. It's a very common thing. People talk about cloud, people talk about compute virtualization, network, hardware, storage, blah, 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 blah. Take a clinical look on a CIO spend. He spends 18% of his cost in data centers, maximum. While the spend on applications are close to 60%. Now, in order for cloud to make an impact, or in order for any transformation program to make an impact, you have to make a difference in the application space. Otherwise, you are not really doing any radical transformation. Data center cost you can reduce from 18% to 12%, 10%, that's all. So, well, it starts from virtualization, it starts from compute virtualization, but that's not the end game. It's very important to see that you have your application leveraging those virtualized compute resources and make a sense for cloud. And you see the savings, you see the efficiency. It's not about money, it's not just about cost. As I said, it's about standardization, it's about business change management, it's about adopting new things in a more agile way. That's all about cloud. And by the way, it gives you cost savings. So I think I was speaking about this, the role of industry in cloud. People tend to say, I want to talk about cloud. Okay, you face a data center guy or an IT architect or an enterprise architect or probably a IT director. It's an IT initiative. I don't agree to that. It's an industry-based initiative. And if you really see that how cloud is shaping up the industry, you take a telco. A telco is looking for cross-selling products because that's what makes him win. It can't really innovate beyond the value-added services that it offers because bandwidth is commoditized, voice is commoditized, what more for him? So it's important for him to know his customers, know what products they have already adopted, and then probably try to cross-sell or upsell some other products. How can you do that? How can you get your legacy systems give you an unified 360 view? Cloud is a platform which helps you to do that. It actually gives you an ability to do some real-time analytics. It was not available to us before. Talk about manufacturing, say auto manufacturing. I think the key services, it's not about the engine because by and large the design is saturated, right? Unless we're talking about the Jaguars of the world because they are the pioneers in those areas. But it's more about how you can provide essential services in terms of providing real-time automobile information to the driver. How do you do that? Community cloud helps you in doing that. Talk about an insurer. Regulations, big time ask in an insurance industry. I'm sure you all guys have heard about Solvency II. It's an uproar in Europe now. Right? You can't adopt Solvency II. I'll just probably digress for a minute and talk about what Solvency II demands. Solvency II actually demands that you capture more data about the person or an entity whom you are underwriting so that you cover risks. Things like how many times he flies to Japan. Things like how many times he flies to tsunami-prone areas. Those data points were never captured before when you were underwriting a person for his life. So huge explosion of data for the health insurance industry. And if the industry were to spend money in terms of storage, network, compute, they'll go out of the business. So the only way to comply to Solvency II is to take out costs from the existing system and plow it back and make it efficient. That's what cloud helps you to do. So it's very important that we take the industry perspective when we talk about cloud. And in fact, we'll talk about it. 10 to 15% of the cloud spends today are being decided not by the CIO organization. They are being bought directly by CEOs and the businesses. And we see an uptrend there, especially with the advent of SaaS and BPaaSs. They are buying directly. The CIOs are not involved in decision making. It's a big shift. And as I said, it provides you those Lego pieces, and you need to just assemble and reassemble and build on top of it to provide your industry solutions. Security. I think, there has been a lot of discussion about security, so I won't really delve into the technical matters. If somebody is interested, we can speak offline. But the key thing is, it's important to understand that what is in security that bugs people, or the bugs in enterprise. Is it data sharing? Yes, that's one of the key things, but that's more of an operational challenge. That's not a technical challenge. Right? Let's talk about identity, talk about data as in, the secrecy of data or the privacy of data, and talk about access. You have softwares which are matured enough to serve you the level of security that you would be looking for. You have something called a virtual private cloud. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it. In a private cloud, the security is not at all an issue. It's all within your own premises either, or you have a logical access to a public cloud which is yours. And when people tend to kind of contest that, I generally ask this question: can you talk about a different platform which is more secured and provides more delivery capabilities than cloud? No, right? In fact, if you really talk to the CISOs of the world, they will say that cloud provides a maximum security because it needs to do so. When we talk about multi-tenancy, when we talk about data sharing, you need to bring in that additional level of security. Yes, there are certain data sharing challenges which we need to acknowledge, but as I said, those are not technical challenges, those are operational challenges. Very easy to solve problem. One other myth that people tend to be worried about when they talk about cloud. They say that, okay, if I have to take on to cloud, I need to throw away everything, what I have. I need to throw away all my assets, all my investments that I've made in my applications, infrastructure, A, B, C, D. You need to understand one thing, that cloud is fundamentally based on an approach of business case. Right? It starts off with a business case and ends with the realization of a business case. The approach of cloud is not to throw away the investment. It's to look at efficiency. Yes, cloud adoption will typically be prefixed by a portfolio rationalization, where you take a look at your backyard and see what you don't want. But anyway, that you would have done, right? And then the approach is more to wrap and adapt. Anna talked about it in the morning from CA, that how they are helping their customers to move their applications to cloud within a week, all legacy infrastructure. And as I said, cloud is business case driven. So at any point in time, you can define matrices which really tracks how cloud is efficient. You can measure how much cross-sell of products you are doing. You can measure your license overhead, what you had and what you have today. You talk about change cost, whether it's going up and down. And you talk about the number of shared services programs that you are internally adopting. Forget about the overall TCO and the break-even. Another big one. This is actually complementary. It's not contradictory. If you have adopted SOA, it helps you to move forward. But that doesn't mean that if you have not done SOA, you come to cloud. These are two different things. SOA is an architectural paradigm, while cloud is an integrated end-to-end delivery platform covering all the OSI layers, the 7 layers in the OSI. Non-core processing. It starts off with that, but we understand that applications are the key spend areas. So core workloads need to be offloaded, and we are doing that. So cloud is not about only your HR and your payroll and your sales CRM. No. SaaSification. We spoke about it. All the ISV vendors are today talking about SaaSification in a big way, be it a SAP or a Microsoft or an Oracle of the world. Otherwise, the revenue stream is drying up. It's very important that they have a control in terms of adoption of their products. And it requires a different mindset to adopt to a SaaSified product line. It's not a far cry. In the next 6 to 7 months, you will see more of SaaSified products of Oracle and IBM coming up. And the last one, very important, huge social backlash. People think that this is another name of outsourcing. They will lose their jobs, people will lose jobs because there will be consolidation of roles. It's very important that you have a common purpose as to why you are doing so, why things are getting consolidated, and then you upskill your people to do more growth-oriented things. That's what Anna also spoke about in the morning. So to sum it up, as I started off with it, cloud is mainstream. It's not an IT initiative, it's a pure business-driven, yes, you can say business-driven IT initiative. Business is directly buying it, and I shared some data points with you. different stakeholders who bless adoption of cloud will have different perspectives. It's important that we have a convergence. That's where the success of cloud is. And the last but not the least, we will have more myths. And it's an opportunity for us to actually get to the roots of the problem and surface the facts, which helps the various decision makers, and we probably go back and ask them, do you feel any way different now? That's what cloud is about. Thanks. I open the floor for some questions if you have.
You said a lot of standardization is happening in the cloud. Can you throw some light?
Yeah, it's a very good question. See, standardization is one of the things that cloud is craving for. Yes, today we don't have a lot of standards like you have in SOA or in other architectural paradigm. But yes, there are operational standards which are coming up through ITIL, which are cloud compliant. There are standards which are coming out for service orchestration, which you can do on cloud. There are cloud interoperability standards in terms of when you build an app on Amazon or you build an app on a Google App Engine. What are the standards you need to comply to so that tomorrow you can just shift it to another cloud? So it's kind of an evolving state. But yes, that's an area. That's an area of improvement for cloud.
This is a point yesterday also discussed that it's very snail pace it is going. Nothing is moving actually. There are business interests which people don't want the standardization to come.
Correct. So I think it's important to demystify the adoption first. See, because if standards were there, then these myths would have been invalid. If you have interoperable cloud, if we could have talked about interoperable cloud, then these myths, probably 60% of these myths won't have been there. So yes, this is something that the entire ecosystem is working on, and there are some good podcasts from David Linthicum who talk about cloud interoperability and standards which are emerging. We can talk offline on that.
Any bodies right now operational? Standardization bodies? Anything?
There are consortiums like Blue Mountain Labs who work on that, but not really popular like open source.
Hello, Dhiman. Yeah, I have a question here.
Yeah.
With regard to the slide on the myth of adoption of SOA for cloud implementation, you talked about parallels between the OSI layer and the integration cloud integration. Can you just tell me something about that?
Can you just come back? Your voice was breaking up.
You talked about the parallels between OSI, adoption of OSI, and cloud being an integration platform. So can you just clarify on that, what you meant over there?
Yeah, see, what I think it's important to note, if you talk about SOA, it's an architectural paradigm, right? It's about applications and its ability to expose or exist as services or orchestrated processes. So by and large, the perimeter of SOA is within applications, although we have things like SOI and SONA, which talks about service-oriented infrastructure and service-oriented network capabilities, but they didn't really take off that way. But if you really talk about cloud, they actually cater to those 7 layers, OSI layers, starting from network, bare metals, then operating system, then application services, and then talk about SaaS and BPaaS. So I think the point to note here is cloud is an integrated delivery platform. It is not only about applications, it's not about infrastructure, it's not about only network. It's end-to-end.
Hi, I clearly agree with this point that it is a total business initiative, and the myths or the reasoning aspect of any business person for not going into cloud are we just listed as a myth. But I presume that these are only reasons which they put it forward to any IT company for not going into cloud. Yes. Maybe there are clear reasons behind these myths within themselves for not going into cloud. So if at all if at all I'm a business person, I have to go into cloud, and I see this is a myth, I will work it out myself to overcome this myth. So I will not wait for an IT company to come and clarify this myth and see what is that alternative or how I can avoid this or something like that.
Right.
So do you have a kind of analysis or study done? What are the other basic resistance points from a business standpoint, from a business, because I agree these are all there, and they might be having an idea as to how we can overcome these problems also. I mean, for example, security or data being hosted other ways or something like that. I mean, I'm just curious to know about if there is any analysis done.
Yeah, so from Happiest Minds, we have done a lot of analysis with respect to this perceptions, as you rightly said. Most of these myths are not founded, they don't have data points, but it actually gives an opportunity to people to say that I don't want to take up that change. Anyway, any change, you will have to push people to take up, be it a CEO or a CIO. Nobody wants change, right? Because you know, with change, probably you know what will change, but you will not know what will come to you. So yes, we have done a lot of research, and I can speak to you offline and share some of the links, some white papers we have, and those talk in more details about some more myths and some more perceptions or misperceptions that have been talked about in the industry, mainly in the CXO sector.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, to sum it up, we would like to thank Dhiman Basu for his interesting session. Though I didn't mention your topic at the start of the session,
okay.
But thanks for your session on Embracing Cloud, Top 10 Myths Busted. On behalf of Cloud Connect and UBM, we would like to have a small token of appreciation to Dhiman for his attendance and participation at the first edition of Cloud Connect. Dhiman,
thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks
coming
a lot.
over.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.